We know how carriers operate. We know their estimating guidelines. We know the pressures that they put on us on us or on independent adjusters to settle claims for less than they're worth or deny claims that are legitimate. So knowing those things, we bring it to this side, and then we implement it so that those things don't happen to us and to our insurers.
Principles of building a company culture, finding good quality people that stick around, I think that goes for any business.
The things that I do mention in those meetings or in those gatherings or whatever it may be, they know that it ultimately leads to a successful place, and that's why everybody's with me, I believe.
And doing the job is really a commodity, right? Let's call it what it is. If it's a dry out, anybody can set down fans, anybody can put down yours. There's no real skill in that. And I know that some people could potentially argue with that and be like, oh, well, there's a science. Yeah, but we all have the same ICRC certification and state licensing. So anybody who's worth their weight understands what that process looks like. The non-tangible aspect of that is trying to make the pro that referred you business look so good, right? To where the homeowner is impressed and says, whoa, this was an amazing experience.
Owning any type of restoration business is demanding of your time, your energy, and resources. And that's why we're here. This is Restoration Domination. If you're a contractor in water mitigation, mold remediation, biohazard cleanup, roofers, or public adjusters, you'll learn how to dominate using some of the techniques and strategies that our guests will share. We'll interview top industry insiders, movers and shakers, hustlers and hackers, and anyone dominating their industry. This is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, and dominate. And here's your host, Rico Garcia.
All right, guys. What is going on? Welcome to another episode of Restoration Domination. Today, I'm really excited to bring you a very special guest, the one and only Edgar Velazquez, the founder, CEO, mastermind behind Monarch Claims, something that I would consider the elite public adjuster out of the Miami, Florida area. I mean, heck, all over the place. So without any further ado, Edgar, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Rico. It's a pleasure to be here, man. You have an amazing setup. It actually challenges mine, so I think I need to, boost mine up a little bit now that I see yours.
Mine looks, so for those of you that are listening to the podcast, you should go on to YouTube and check out Monarch Claims, and they have a fantastic in-house studio with like all the awesome mics and the lighting, and everything is beautifully set up. And yet what I have here is just set up only for video. So as soon as we're like out of frame, it's a total disaster. In frame, it looks good, but thanks, man. I appreciate the compliment there. So Edgar, let's just jump right in, man. So fill in some of the gaps. Who are you? Monarch Claims. What do you guys do?
So, as you said, I'm Edgar. I'm the president of Monarch Claims. I'm also the principal adjuster of the headquarter office, which is located in Miami. We're public adjusters, man. We are the people that protect homeowners against the insurance company. We're the people that make sure that the insured is fully indemnified, and we fight to the last penny. So that's who we are.
That's awesome, man. So how long have you been in the business under the Monarch flag? Like, how did you get into the business?
So under the Monarch name, I've only been in the business about 5 years now. It's going to be 6 in April of the upcoming year. But in the industry, I started as an independent adjuster working for many, many carriers, including Citizens, which is, the most common one, I would say. I did that. I got into the industry in 2008, and then 2016 is when I opened up Monarch.
Right. So then working as an independent adjuster, right, there's a lot of insights, I think. Like once you go from independent adjuster to a public adjuster, there's a lot of different, clashes in ideas, right? Just it's the fundamental difference in philosophy, right? Like how you handle a claim, how you look at a claim. How did that affect knowing what it looked like, now as a public adjuster and just trying to get the homeowner to, fully indemnified? How did that change your approach as a public adjuster?
I want to say that gives me and the rest of the team an advantage over most other PAs, simply because we have been on both sides. And I'm not trying to, sell my company or my name or anything like that, but it's true. We know how carriers operate. We know their estimating guidelines. We know the pressures that they put on us on us or on independent adjusters to settle claims for less than they're worth, or deny claims that are legitimate. So knowing those things, we bring it to this side, and then we implement it so that those things don't happen to us and to our insurance.
Right. So as far as how many PAs do you currently have working with your firm?
Currently, we're at 24.
So 24, which is amazing.
And we're signing somebody else up on Thursday. In Tampa, actually. We're going to be up there. You're going to be up there as well,
I am. Actually, so big shout out to Vince Perry, the commercial claims advocate. We are going to be having a live event on this upcoming Friday. So for some of you listening to this, you probably missed the event, but you should keep an eye out for future events. What's Friday? The 17th, 16th? I don't know, whatever it is. Sometime. Yeah, the 17th of September. But Vince is currently doing a lot of these, meetups and whatnot. So it's a pretty cool place. Yes, I am going to be there. I'm going to actually bring up the wife and everything. So, it's going to be a good time. So, good time to elevate the industry together. So you're bringing another public adjuster from Tampa.
Another public adjuster. This one is actually an independent adjuster also for 6 years for the carrier. So I'm bringing him on board, and it's another person that we have that has basically that
inside track, right?
Exactly.
Like understanding how desk adjusters, field adjusters, claims examiners, right? These are people. A lot of the times they just. You don't ever even get to see them, right? So you don't really, as a new PA stepping into the business, you can hear stories and all of these, these ideas that you can make up in your head about how the actual insurance companies look at these files. But once you're in that side, right, the independent side, so if you were a desk adjuster or a claims examiner or whatever the case may be, you have a full understanding, a very different perspective of what these companies are actually looking for and how customers are going to get paid out on. So one thing that I want to, before we start talking about policy and before we start talking about, how to maximize a claim, how to make sure that the customer is getting, everything that they're supposed to be getting, let's talk about real quick about company culture, because one thing that I think is really impressive, right? And I also think that this is universal, right? Because it doesn't matter, you have a PA firm, I have a water mitigation company, right? Like I have a restoration company. But the principles of building a company culture, finding good quality people that stick around, I think that goes for any business, right? A lot of public adjusters, they have been in the game for a while. They, and they're great public adjusters, right? I'm not taking anything away from them. Great public adjusters. But they have a really hard, they don't build an organization, right? They have a hard time. Maybe they'll bring on an apprentice. The apprentice stays for the 6 months, and then all of a sudden he just goes out and he does his thing. You've built a real business, I think that if you were to remove yourself, you'd still have the machine going, right? So what was your steps? Like, what did you do? What was your approach in finding and hiring quality people? And more importantly, what did you do to motivate them to stay?
That is a great question.
Thank you very much. I try.
That is a great question, and there's many answers to it. I want to say that, and to be frank, Rico, I don't, to this day, I ask myself, how have I been able to build this? And to a certain extent, I think it has to do a lot with who I am as a person. I have very strong, core values. I have a strong moral base. I'm very genuine, and not only what I do as for work as a public adjuster, but with people. So when you come here, you don't get the promise of you don't get fake promises in a sense. You know what you're going to get. You know where we're going, because I also have a very clear vision of where this is going. People tend to want to be part of that. And they know I'm not here to fuck around. And I don't know if
absolutely, of course, yeah. We have the little explicit thing on our podcast all the time, so absolutely.
Exactly. So, and I'm trying to think here as we speak. You know, I didn't really prepare for this, as you know. So you kind of just told me this is what we're going to talk about 2 minutes before. So, but yeah, I think that I just want to do good, and people that are around me, they want to do good too. And there's been trial and error. I've hired people that it hasn't worked out. They don't have the same vision. They don't have the same goals. And it hasn't worked out. They've ended up going elsewhere. But I would say 90% of the people that I've brought on board are still with us today, as far as public adjusters. And again, I think it just has to do with our goals, with our vision, with our mission, and just the fact that we're genuine about what we do and we love what we do.
But one thing that's really interesting about like vision, right, is a lot of entrepreneurs every entrepreneur has a vision. That's one thing. But then how do you take your vision, your core values, and when you're hiring someone, say, hey, look, this is what I believe. This is what our company stands for. So, and of course, there's several different ways of doing this, right? Some people have morning meetings, weekly meetings, quarterly meetings, whatever works for their organization. So I guess the question really is how do you take your message, your core beliefs, and have your employees, right, the people that are working in your organization, take ownership? Is it via, the written word? Is it morning meetings that you guys are doing, like, extracurricular activities that, are bonding? What's kind of your process when it comes to that?
It's a lot of man, I don't even know how to explain this. It's a lot. Look, not everybody's going to have your same mission or vision, right? They can only subscribe to it in a sense. So it's up to me, like you said, to push them, to make sure that they keep going. But even though we don't share the same mission or the same vision, not everybody in my team does, they know that the vision that I have leads in a successful path, right? So, and everybody wants to be successful. I mean, I don't know anybody that just wants to be mediocre. So they kind of subscribe to that. They subscribe to that, and when I say, "Hey guys, we got to do this because this is the goal," they're going to follow that path because they know that we're going to get there. There's no question that I'm going to get there. So if you're with me, we get there together, and if you're not, well, you're going to go another way. Weekly meetings, yes, we have weekly meetings. We don't really talk about the vision and the mission so much. We just talk about mostly quality and making sure that we're focused on the client so that we could get to where we need to be. So in every meeting, I don't, read our mission statement or our vision. That's not something that I do often. I think I should, now that you mention it, I should probably do it more than I do. But it's not something that we talk about often. The things that I do mention in those meetings or in those gatherings or whatever it may be, they know that it ultimately leads to a successful place, and that's why everybody's with
right.
me.
Right, and that's a very important thing, right? To and there's so much to unpack, and this is why I like asking these questions, right? Because some entrepreneurs will, if I would have asked that same question, they would have been like, Rico, this is exactly what I did, and they would have had like a list, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's like perfectly laid out. And then you have another camp of entrepreneurs, which I think I personally am also in your camp, where I get stuff done, and then all of a sudden I'm like, how exactly was it that I did that? And then I always have to go back and then reverse engineer and try to figure out and unpack it. But as far as like having like the mission statement and having, company culture, a lot of times it's not about having, really pretty words on a piece of paper that you're constantly reading off to your people and trying to have them buy into it. Sometimes it's about just your daily action, right? How you're handling a claim or how you're handling a project or how you're handling a prospect, and everything that goes into that is a reflection of, right? It's an embodiment of your mission statement, of your core beliefs. So just because you don't have it down on a piece of paper, right? And I think this is really important for a lot of entrepreneurs to hear. Just because you don't have it written down and post, on a piece of paper or you post it on a wall somewhere so that every time that someone walks into the office, they get to quote unquote see your mission statement. But you could be an embodiment of what your mission statement looks like. How do you walk into the office every day? Are you mopey or are you happy?
Yeah.
right? Are you constantly addressing problems and that's the only thing that you see, or are you looking at situations and coming up with solutions? All of these things have a way of representing how you build an organization, and I think that one of the best ways to get good quality people is when a leader is actually leading, right? And because if the employees start to see, or your team members start to see that you don't have the answers, or that you start crumbling under pressure, all of a sudden they start questioning why they're with that organization, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. But more than having the answers, I think that you need to show as a leader that you can get the answers, because you're not going to know everything. Especially me, I'm a person that, while I know a lot about insurance, that's really all I know about. I don't know much about business. Everything that I've grown up to this point has been just, knocking down walls, literally. And because I know that I can. So as long as you have that confidence in yourself, knowing that, you can accomplish anything, I think that's the main ingredient to being successful. I recently took a course where, a business course, it's like a crash course for Babson. It's a Goldman Sachs course. They teach you business and, how to come up with a business strategy and measure your metrics and all these things, which was great. But I thought to myself, this is amazing. This is great. And I'm sure it works. But this would be nothing without my drive. If I had all this information and I did not have the drive to implement it, it wouldn't matter. So what's the key ingredient? Just knowing, trusting yourself, being confident, and knowing that you could achieve anything that you set your mind to.
Absolutely.
And something that you said, walking in here, I walk in here and it's like I have this fucking energy that I'm going to tear this shit up, and it's every day. It's constant. And I live it. I don't do it on purpose. I don't, go outside and do some push-ups to walk in here pumped. No, I'm like fucking like,
Yeah, you want to get it.
When I get in here, you know that I'm here. Like, you can feel my energy all the way from the other corner of the office, and people are attracted to that. They know that if they follow that, if they're with you, you're gonna take them to a successful place. So
yeah, it's having the energy and having the passion to do what it is that you're asking other people to do is probably the most important thing, because nothing is more contagious than enthusiasm, right? Like having enthusiasm for your business, for your mission, what you're trying to do, who you're trying to serve, things of that nature. So as far as it's kind of switching gears here a little bit. Let's talk about relationships between public adjusters and restoration companies, because I think this is really important. In your opinion, what do you think would be the best approach for a restoration company to go ahead and reach out to public adjusters, public adjusting firms, and say, hey, look no further. I am your number one resource for all of your customer needs. What do you think the proper approach should be?
So I'm so glad you mentioned that, and I hope a lot of people see this because I get those messages all the time. I get those messages of, I'm your guy, we have this and we have that. And people don't realize that they come to me with showing what they can do, but they don't come to me with an offering. So if you want to show me what you could do, send me a claim. Let's work together. But no, they come with, I could do all of this and send me work, right? And it shouldn't work like that. To your question, you should come with claims. As simple as that. You should say, hey, Edgar, I know I've seen what you guys are about. I think we have similar values. I'm all about taking the client just like taking care of the client, just like you guys are. I'm all about working hard, just like you guys are. And since I want to work together, I want you to handle this file for us so that we could try each other out. So I think if somebody comes to me with that approach, it would make a world of a difference. Because I get people calling me all the time. Hey, let's get together. Let's take you out to lunch. Let's have drinks. Yeah, no, I'll take you up on the meeting, but I'm never going to send you one of our files until you send me one of yours.
It's the one hand.
To me, you have to
absolutely. It's the one hand washes the other approach.
Correct. No, not so much. If you're coming to me and you want to work with me, you have to come with an offering. In a sense. Because if somebody's going to put a file on the line, it's going to be you. You're the one that's approaching me, right? So I don't know.
No, so that's a very good. So for me, in my mind, it's always you got to lead with the results, right? Your perspective is actually very interesting because now, and I didn't even pick up on that little subtlety. This is why I love having these conversations. For me, I would, if I wanted to go ahead and do business with somebody, I would go ahead and say, hey, look, what kind of business are they in? I don't know. Let's just use a plumber as an example, right? If I know that I have potentially a really good business relationship with a plumber that I know can go ahead and be a great lead source for me, I'm not going to reach out and send them the same LinkedIn message that everybody sends out or Instagram message. It's the same, the stuff that we're so tired of getting all the time, right? I would go ahead and said, hey, look, I've got, this client, and this client. I've seen what you've been doing. I think that I'm impressed. So let me go ahead and give you some clients. But I'd be doing that from the approach of one hand washes the other, right? Like I'm leading with results first. I'm not taking you for granted. I'm not coming with my hand out. I'm saying, hey, please feed me. That's not what I'm doing.
Exactly, which was
right. So everybody does that. And of course, everybody is great, right? Like we're all fantastic. Just talking about it, right? But it's like, what are you doing though for the other person? Because you're in a way, and nobody's stupid. Like, look, I can buy my own lunch. Thank God. Like I can buy my own lunch. I can buy my own cocktails. And we've only got 24 hours in a day. We don't have time to take each and every single meeting when we know that really what's going on is that you want to have a meeting because you want my leads, you want my book of business. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But what I'm saying is that if you lead with results, all of a sudden it changes the dynamic, right? Now you've kind of put the ball in their court, right? However, your perspective was a little bit different. It's the same, yet different. Your perspective is you're saying, if anybody's going to put a file on the line, this claim on the line, you've got to come and put that claim on, right? Like in other words, we know that we can deliver the goods, right? Like we know that our claim is going to be solid, but we don't know what you're bringing to the table, right? So we're not going to risk this client's well-being when you're still the unknown variable. Basically, is what you're saying. That's amazing.
Correct, and you're the one that's reaching out to me, to try to do business together. So you have to come with an offer,
right?
In a sense, and I think if more companies had that approach, I would be, my network would be a lot larger, because I don't just work with anybody. Again, it has to be companies and people that have same values, same work ethic. In order for me to be associated to them. I don't care if you send me 1,000 claims, if you're a POS, a piece of shit, I don't want to work with you because the reputation that you have, it's going to ultimately also, reflect on me anyway. The client's not going to call you, the mitigation company, to complain about, how bad you did the job. They're probably going to call me because I'm the one handling the actual claim. So that's
you again. Typically, what happens is, and this is, as a matter of fact, I think when I was interviewed on your podcast, we spoke about this a little bit, which is as a pro, if you are getting a lead or a customer through a referral from another pro, in other words, you hand me a file and you say, hey, Rico, you're already teed up. This person needs the service. Yes, I have to service the client. Like, of course, that's a given, right? But really, at the core, because look, doing the job is really a commodity, right? Let's call it what it is. If it's a dry out, anybody can set down fans. Anybody can put down DHUs. There's no real skill in that. And I know that some people could potentially argue with that and be like, oh, well, there's a science. Yeah, but we all have the same IICRC certification and state licensing. So anybody who's worth their weight understands what that process looks like. The non-tangible aspect of that is trying to make the pro that referred you business look so good, right? To where the homeowner is impressed and says, whoa, this was an amazing experience. Edgar, thank you so much for this referral. Wow. The goal should be that. To have a cheerleader and to make the person that gave you that referral look like a champion. Like that should be the goal. And when you do that, and if you go into it knowing that that's the goal, inevitably the client, it's going to be happy. So the client is kind of removed from that equation, right? But yet now, if you think about this, Edgar, if you got a phone call from your client that you referred to me and they said, Edgar, wow, amazing experience. Like, we had this dry out. He did like everything. Like, he took care of all my furniture, took care of my belongings, worked around my schedule. And on top of that, he gave me this little thing, right? Like, for example, like me, I like doing air purification devices, right? For the antimicrobial aspect. So and again, it's a small little investment on my side, but it pays huge dividends, right? And I leave them a little thing and I say, hey, on behalf of, EcoTech Pro and Monarch Claims, boom. And I just leave that behind, and you get that phone call. What would you say? Like, what would your reaction be to something like that? I'd be like, whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, my reaction would be Rico's a guy, and he's going to be at the top of my list whenever I refer somebody.
And that's like what people need to think about. It's like, take it a step further than just making it merely transactional, right? Because you have to remember that there's people involved. There's real people that are going to speak to other people. So like having that little, it's like, again, I don't get paid to leave an air purification device behind, right? Or to leave whatever, to leave a handwritten thank you note. Like, there is no pay for that. There's no line item and Xactimate for that, right? But there is like that human element to where now all of a sudden Betsy, that was our mutual client, she's going to say, hey, we just, Edgar really took care of my claim, and, Rico really took care of this part. It was amazing. They even did this, they did that for me. It's just a totally different dynamic. Do you see a lot of people taking that approach, or is that something that you think is missing from a lot of the pros that probably are approaching?
I think it's missing, and I think it's a great point. It's not something that we implement ourselves, but now that you mention it, I'm strongly considering doing that more. When somebody recommends me a claim, just doing something extra in order for that vendor that recommended it to get that feedback from the client. It's definitely a great idea. I don't know. Did you do that? Do you do
all
that
the time?
Or is that
all the time? Yeah, no. It's not mental masturbation. Like, it's like a real thing. Like, wherever I have the opportunity to do the little extras with the client, especially if it's a referral, because I can generate my own leads like all day, every day. Like, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, right? But it's a whole different element. Like think about it, right? Like, so in your company, you have a reputation to maintain, right? Like, your clients are your headaches. The last thing that you want is to make a client that would normally have been happy and then make a referral to another vendor, and then all of a sudden the client has a bad taste in your mouth. Not only did that affect your vendor's reputation, but guess what? Your vendor can be making $10, $20 million a year. That's not going to buy you a bigger house. That's not going to send your kids to private school. What he makes has no effect in your bank account, right? But now you've been affected by that relationship. So for me, it's always been about, I understand that it takes a lot of comfort for one pro to recommend another pro. It's not something to be taken lightly, right? To some degree, you could say, well, if I kind of mess up on this client, it's no big deal. I can always get another client if you generate your business yourself, right? You kind of have that, you have that segue, right? But because you're the only person that's affected, right? However, when a pro recommends another pro, it's two pros. It's so many different people that are affected by that bad experience, right? So for me, I always try to find the little places where I can go ahead and just go above and beyond, leave a little something behind. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't need to be big. And also be like aware, like situationally aware of where you are, right? Like, for example, if I walk into somebody's house and I see that they have, so let me give you an example. So I love watches. Right now I'm wearing just a regular Apple Watch just because I'm a tech geek. But I like watches. So I was in a property, and it was a mold remediation project, and it was a referral from someone else and another pro, and it was in this man's den / office space, and he is a big Panerai guy, and he had like a bunch of like Panerai stuff. He had like he had his little watch collection there with several Panerais and whatnot. I had a Panerai. We kind of like spoke about that for a little bit, and all I did was I just bought like a little like trinket Panerai wall art, and left it behind, like a little thank you note. And the guy was like calling me for like 3 days. It's like, oh, bro, this is amazing. This is great. This is great. And it's like, it was a simple like eBay purchase. It wasn't like anything crazy. Yeah. But again, these are like the small little things that now, anytime that he's at his desk, right, or in his den, like he's going to look at that and be like, oh, okay, I remember that. This is where I got this piece, right? It's just a great way to change the customer's experience away from the issue that they just had, and you also give them the mental relief of, oh wow, there's this whole new human element on how business should be done. So for me, I think that that's a really cool way of going about it.
It is, and I'm actually learning from you here in that aspect. I think it's something that we should implement as well. We don't really focus on that. We're more just making sure that what we do is the best service possible, but just giving it that human touch of care. I think it could go along.
It definitely does, man. It definitely does. So as far as the public adjusters and the mitigation companies, I guess the big takeaway is number one, lead with results, right? And number two, try to make sure that the pro looks good, right? Like if you're giving away claims, right, basically feeding another company with free business for all intents and purposes, make sure that the customer service and more importantly that the firm is always looking good in the process, and that should generate a long-standing relationship moving forward, right? That's awesome.
I agree 100%.
What do public adjusters? Go ahead.
And to highlight, if you're going to reach out to somebody to ask for business, come with an offering, not just come showing that you're giving them something, not just asking something.
Right. Yeah. So let me ask you. So as far as from a public adjusting standpoint in your company, what do you guys primarily do? What's your primary mechanism for generating new business? Is it primarily word of mouth, or are you guys, doing direct mail? Are you guys doing any kind of internet marketing? Like, what are you doing to get the Monarch name out there?
Currently, about 80% of our lead source is customer referrals. Existing customers referring us to other friends and family. As you know, we have been continuously trying to go big on the social media and with the YouTube account and Google ads and all this good stuff. But still, even though that has costed me a shitload of money, nothing is giving me as much return as doing a good job for my clients and those clients referring us to other clients. So.
The word of mouth is the absolute best. The only negative to word of mouth is the speed of word of mouth, and that there's really no way for you to quantify what next month is going to look at, right? So you can't really quantify 6 months down the road, because again, word of mouth, you could have a ton of claims this week, and then next week nobody is mentioning your name, and there's like really no way to quantify that. Whereas, on the digital marketing side, once you kind of have a system down already, right? So like, let's say for example, like Google Ads, I'm a big advocate for Google Ads. I actually have the Google Ads Domination course. DM me if you want some info on that. But Google Ads is a great way, right? If once you have your system down, you could pretty much say, hey, look, for every dollar I spend, I'm getting 3 out. For every dollar I spend, I'm getting 5 out, right? Whatever that metric looks like, and you can kind of then, scope it out for the next 6 months, 12 months, and kind of get an idea of what, your cash flow looks like. But I do think that a lot of people don't pay enough attention to word of mouth, right? Like, word of mouth is the best advertising because you are a direct referral. And if you're 80% of your business is coming from word of mouth, I mean, that means that you're doing something right.
Yeah, and it's free.
And it's free, which is amazing. Right.
Yeah, so noticing that because we have, tried all these other routes to get claims, and yes, we do get claims, but not in the same volume that we do from word of mouth. So when we realized that we made it a point to reach out to previous clients every so often. Hey, this is Edgar from Monarch Claims, just checking in to see how you're doing. Are the repairs done with your claim? Yes. Oh, great. Send me pictures. How's the family? Everything's good? Okay. So please remember, if you have any friends and family that could use our help, please, let them know that we're here for them. And those calls generate so many leads for us. So we're capitalizing on the word of mouth.
Do you have a system in place to do this? As far as like when exactly you're following up? Is it like, a couple of weeks after the claim has been closed out? What's your system for that kind of follow up?
We don't have a system. I think that we should. It's more of every time we have a PA meeting, that's a topic that we always touch on. Hey guys, remember to reach out to your clients, your past clients, and that's when the PAs go, oh shit, I got to call this client that I closed out 2 months ago. Let me see how it is, and then they get a lead.
Right.
From that. So I don't have a system in place, but it is constantly being talked about throughout.
Right. So it's part of the company culture. It's like, hey, follow up, right? Because if you think about it, and again, this goes to show, even for you, right? Like, how much money are you spending on the advertising side to get a client? Whether it's Google Ads, Facebook, YouTube, it doesn't matter. You're spending a lot of money and a lot of resources to get one client. For me, it's mind-boggling that a company would spend so much money trying to acquire a client and then not follow up with that client, right? Like, even when they've closed already and you've made your commission, you've made your sale, whatever it is, right? However your company is structured, you've made your money. There's still follow up to be done with that client, because customer acquisition is the most expensive part of any business, of most businesses, right? After that, it's how can you magnify, right, or multiply that investment? And sometimes it's just as simple as picking up the phone and having a quick little call and be like, hey, Sally, how are you? I was thinking about, like, for example, I was just driving down the street the other day. Client I haven't spoken to, again, serviced a client, did remediation work. I have no reason to speak to this client. No reason whatsoever. But she has several clinics, right? And she has one of her vans that was just driving around town, and I happened to just be parked next to her. And I was like, oh, great. So I took a picture of the van, and I'm like, I see you everywhere. Something simple. But what that does, and I sent it to her, right? And what she just sends me back an LOL, oh, that's so funny. How's everything going? Now all of a sudden that just opens up a conversation. Now all of a sudden I'm back on top of mind. It's like, oh yeah, that's that guy Rico. He did this work for me. That's amazing. Just keeping on top of people is it's just good practice. First of all, it's good human practice. That's number one. And then from a business standpoint, I mean, that's where you really make your money, is in the follow up.
Correct. Don't assume that because you helped somebody that they're always going to remember you. They're not. Once you're done with that claim, that's it. You're out of mind, out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
Right? So just make it a point to check in with those clients periodically, even if just check. Yeah,
checking in with them is amazing. And again, it's one of those things where it doesn't really matter what kind of business you're in, right? You could be a roofer, you can be in mitigation, you could be a public adjuster. Just checking in with the client is really just a good practice. Number one, you just never know when they're going to have another issue. You might get lucky. Right? Or they might have a friend that was like, you know what? I'm so glad that you called. I misplaced your number. I lost it. I was just yesterday. I was out to dinner with my friends, and one of my friends was talking about, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and send you her contact info. Fantastic. Great. Boom. That's automatic business right there. And everybody just kind of takes it for granted. You know what I mean? And also another quick side note, from a pro perspective, right? Pro to pro, like business to business. The same thing happens. Let's say, for example, that someone calls you today, Edgar, right? And they're like, hey, Edgar, I'm this great guy, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Let's go ahead and, have a chit-chat next week. All right, great. If you don't put it in your calendar or something like that happens, right? It's immediately, no matter how dynamic that conversation was, someone's going to walk in your office and talk about a claim. Someone is going to call you with another issue. You got to put out a fire. You have this, you have that. You have more appointments. You have a podcast you have to do. You have to, record a video. You have all these other things. By the time that the day comes to an end, you forgot about that person. You can't even remember their first name. So, something that I talk about constantly is creating a list, like even for pros that are reaching out to other pros. Don't just randomly, passively use Google and, dial the phone. It's a waste of time, right? You should be creating a very active list that you're going back and you're following up with people consistently, because that's really where the money is at. So what do you see happening for Monarch over the course of the next 12 months, 5 years? What do you see? What's the vision for Monarch moving forward?
In the next 5 years, we're going to be in almost every state of the United States.
How many now, as of right now?
We're trying to 5. We're in 5, but we're licensed in 5, but actively working in 3. Florida, Louisiana, and Texas.
So you recently just came back from Louisiana. Were you pretty much at ground zero in Louisiana, or where were you working out of?
In the outskirts of New Orleans, which there's a lot of destruction everywhere. Practically every house has damage. So if anybody's watching this and you're thinking of going out, go out. There's a lot of work out there. A lot of people needing help. A lot of people displaced. Out of their homes. There's a lot of work. And as you know, the insurance company is not going to make them whole.
Right.
So whether you need a public adjuster or mitigation company, get people on board so you can get.
What should a public adjuster that may be watching this or listening to the podcast before, and they've never gone out of the state, right? The state of Florida, let's say. They've ever traveled, right? Like what's the number one thing that you would tell them, this is what's going to give you a competitive advantage, right? Before going out to, let's say, Louisiana, like what would your suggestion be?
Competitive, I think the main thing is, in whatever you do, is to believe in your fucking self.
Right.
Believe in yourself. Believe that if you go out there, that you're going to get claims, that you're going to help people. That's the mentality that you have to go out there with. This is our second storm in Louisiana. We handled claims for Laura. For Laura, we were going out there without knowing anything. We said we're going to do it, and we did it. We were knocking on doors. We spent like 3 days, and we didn't get a lead. Until the third day, we finally made a connection with a mitigation company, and that mitigation company referred us a few leads, and then the clients, and the ball got
right.
rolling. Competitive advantage, there's not a lot of competition out there. There's barely any PAs out there. So, you go out there, you can help a lot of people. There's no question about it. It's just getting the ball rolling is the most difficult thing, which is why I say, believe in yourself and believe that you can achieve it. Don't give up. In another
right.
way.
So, and then basically your goal is to be in the next 5 years, pretty much coast to coast throughout the United States.
Correct. Yeah, and I think we can easily achieve it. It's
a big goal. It's a big goal having a presence in each and every single state. What do you think the best mechanism is for a public adjuster who's looking to grow their company, right? What do you think, besides obviously them being a good quality leader and stuff like that, right? What do you think the best approach is for them to try to recruit new people into their organizations? Like, what if you had to start today from scratch, how would you go ahead and rebuild your company?
Well, I started by bringing my friends in. I had a lot of friends that had the same mentality as me. They were in career-wise, they were in bicycles. And I offered them a Ferrari, in a sense. Something that you could get to point A to point B
in half the time.
A lot quicker than
right.
Exactly, or much faster. So that's how I basically grew this thing, by bringing in friends, and then those friends brought other friends, and then eventually we became started having a presence in social media. So people are starting to reach out to us to work with us. So that's how we did it. I don't know if it works for everybody, but that's how we did it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, path of least resistance. People that are in your immediate circle, if there's a way for you to offer them a vehicle that is potentially going to better their lives and their families' lives and stuff like that, like, why not? Like, number one, they're the closest to you. They're the ones that that are probably going to feel the best effects of this new lifestyle. So go ahead and start with friends and family, and then friends and family don't work. You just continue and expanding from there, and trying to just continue doing what you're doing, right? Leading with results. And this is where I think like social media is so important, right? Because even if someone doesn't have a big network of friends and family that they can go ahead and kind of get off the block strong per se, but at least if you're documenting the journey, all of a sudden things become, they're out there. right? So now other people are like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Oh, wow, this is how many people he's helping. Oh, wow, this is how much money he's bringing to the table just by doing that, right? And for some reason, nobody likes to talk about money anymore, but money's important. Like we can't survive without it, right? So, it's not a bad thing. It shouldn't be so taboo, right? If you're making, whatever it is that you're making, your $250,000, $500,000, $1 million a year, doing good work that's legitimately helping people, there shouldn't be a shame in saying, hey, by the way, this is what, the potential is in our business while helping people.
Correct.
Like, do you have a taboo about talking about money or you okay with that? I mean, you're down south, you're in Miami, so it's like everybody talks about money in Miami.
We're bougie down
here. Yeah,
so.
exactly. That's amazing. So something that I ask all of my podcast guests is to give me their typically I say top 3 book recommendations, but what are your top book recommendations that anybody should read? Do you have a little list of books that you feel that every entrepreneur should read? Or any book that you've read that's impacted your life?
Rico, I think we talked about this when you came. I'm not much of a reader. One of the books that I read, and that was such a long time ago, Think and Grow Rich, I think it's called. Yep,
Napoleon Hill.
Correct. I dislike reading so much that I didn't even finish it, even though it was good. So
do you listen to to podcasts? Like, how do you get like some of the entrepreneurial stuff? Or like, how do you listen to any motivational things? Do you watch any motivational videos? Like, as an entrepreneur, or are you just so high on life that you're just in your own lane and you don't care?
That's exactly how I am. I do, occasionally we'll see a comment on Instagram and it'll catch my attention and I'll repost it. But I am walking motivation. And I'm not, I'm not trying to be cocky or anything, but that's really what I am. I'm just all pure fucking drive, like forward, and not.
And just figuring a lot of it out along the way.
Figuring it out, and if I need help, I'll reach out to people that know more than I do. Like mentors,
have you ever paid for mentorship?
No. Well. In a sense, yes, because my financial advisor makes a shitload of money off of me. But no, I'm not paying him for mentorship in a sense. But yeah, no. So, whenever I need help, whenever I'm stuck, I'll reach out to people that know more about me, about business. But other than that, I maybe I should do more research. Maybe I should read more. Maybe. I should do all these things that could potentially help my business. But,
well, this is something I will say. I mean, and again, there's different strokes for different folks, and right. And this is like the beauty of business, and this is the beauty of having all of these kinds of conversations, because there's a lot of social pressure now, right? With, you got to read 52 books a year, right? Like the top CEOs read 52 books a year, but dude, like. Listen, I don't like to read. Like, first of all, let me remove myself, because I actually enjoy reading. Like, I enjoy reading. But I do it because I enjoy it. I don't do it so I could just say, hey, yeah, I met my quota for the year. But, there's a lot of these pressures, right? Like, hey, you got to listen to, motivational tapes in the morning. You got to do this and you got to do that. And you got to go to all these seminars and you got to do like, no, you don't. Like, what you have to do, sometimes less is more, right? As long as you have one important component, which is the one that you have, which is I know when I'm stuck or when I'm about to go into a new arena and I don't quite have the answers that I need to succeed, as long as you know where to get that information, or at least be self-aware enough to say, you know what, I need help, and then go out and find it. Right. That's the missing key. Because why do you read whatever amount of books it is that you read? You read it because you're looking for specific answers or a series of answers, and you're trying to paint a picture for yourself. And it's a way of having mentorship without having mentorship, right? It's a way to tap into other people's knowledge, right? But if you have the network and you're good at what you do in your arena and you already know where to find, the right answers, dude, like that's 99% of the battle, right? The rest of it is really up to you. It's just putting how much motivation and how much grit do you have to be able to grow your business. So, Edgar, Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Talk to me about if anybody wants to reach out to you, they want to go ahead and send you claims, right? Because that's important. If they want to come with offerings, like where do they get in contact with you on social media, website, things like that?
Social media, you guys can reach me at _Monarch_adjuster. You can find that's in Instagram. You can find me there, or our website is www.monarchclaims.com. You could reach out if you're interested in working with us. You could also reach out at mail@monarchclaims.com, and that's it, man. Just remember that if you're gonna, first of all, you have to have similar values. You have to have similar work or same work ethic. And you have to come with an offering, because companies to work with, there's millions out there. So do something different. Say, hey, I have this claim for you. I know you guys are great, just like I am, and I want you to handle it. So, and that's really, think about it. That's the only way that you can really know whether the relationship is going to work or not, right? Because we can tell each other that we're great, but we won't know unless we're actually working together.
Exactly right.
So,
well, Edgar, thank you so much. Again, descriptions to all of Edgar's contact information will be in the video description and in the show notes below. Edgar, let's definitely do it again, and I will catch you guys on the next time.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, interviewing the restoration business's top industry insiders, the movers and shakers, the hustlers and hackers. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Hook up with us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Restoration Domination to catch video interviews, highlights, and behind-the-scenes content. And follow your host at Rico Garcia Jr. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.